physical sensation of unease or discomfort, yes? And then there's a naming of it. Hey, this is a drag or whatever. And then immediately you want to get away from it, don't you? That's what usually happens. Yeah? And you're adverse to it now, and suddenly you're more in relation to it through the hate than you would have been if you didn't have any feeling about it at all. Voila! It reveals something, you know, you see the movement. You see a lot of things, like a lot of people think they're moving towards something, but they're usually moving away from something. Yeah? It's usually trying to get away from something, and all they're moving towards other things. Yeah? They're bound by what they're moving away from, more than what they're moving towards. You see it. If you see this thing, if you see the activity, you'll see its only activity. If you see the structure, you'll see it as a foreign installment. You'll see it. If you see one wing of it as phony, you can actually entertain the whole wing. The whole mansion is phony. That's it. You don't have to go through every fucking room and get disappointed and this and that. One room will tell you all about every room in the house. Yeah? It's a house of cards. Every one. Yeah? Now, it'll take longer to go through all the rooms, but you can get it just at the threshold. You can just realize, hey, what's seeing it isn't really engaged with this. Or I wouldn't be seeing it. I'd be seeing from it. You know? Oh, okay, so I cannot possibly be the fixed reference that everything is, that the house is built around. Yeah? So therefore I'm not loaded down with a 20-year mortgage. I can walk out at any time because in fact I've never walked in. You see? It takes no time to get out of an imaginary place. That's the solution. Nothing ever fucking happened. Oh yes, it sure has. It has, but not to you. You're a happening. That's what you are. And it can be interrupted. There's many times the selfing has been interrupted, either through a sudden trauma, yeah, doing what you really like to do, yeah. When you really, let's say when I'm surfing, I'm not engaged, my mind's not engaged in the remembrance of Paul by thinking about the past and the future. There's too much engagement in the medium of it, yeah, the waves, the wind, the this and that. There's none of that going on, yeah, and therefore I have a really lovely, lovely experience in the water, because I'm not having the experience. Yeah. Now I could pin the tail on that donkey, but it isn't the surfing that's producing that. It's the mind. Yeah. Why would you want to limit it to only something you love to do? Why not allow it to expand into everything you do and everything you don't do? What's stopping it? Only your limited ability. Only You're just not allowing it to be entertained because you're busily entertaining old ideas that can't happen, or I can't make a living healing, or this or that. These are the old ideas. This is so much more inclusive. Yeah, it's not a black or white. It's not either and or. Before I either worked or I had fun. Now I have fun and I work. Yeah, I can surf and work in one day. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. If I'm going to surf, I can't work, and if I'm working, I can't surf. That's not, where's that from? Yeah? It's like a phony partition of like a seamless fabric called it, life. Yeah? And we're stitching constantly, trying to separate everything. Yes, no, this, that. What? Jesus. Like this lady at the restaurant just saw us eating, and she said, I try to pan myself off as an older, a senior, so you get half price. And she says, you're not a senior? I said, yeah, I'm 61. She says, no, you look 50. No, I'm 61. Well, you're happy. Yeah, and I said, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't believe you're that. You look happy. You don't worry. I said, yeah, exactly.
No discount for you. You're too happy.
It's so fucking funny. Yeah. I mean, shit. Look at people's faces. That's not brought about by the climate a lot, it's brought about by the inner climate. The wrinkles come from inside out, you know? You know what I mean? Shit. Fuck. The proof is in the pudding too, I mean. It's gonna hard not to look like you're traveling lighter if you're traveling lighter. It's gonna sort of express itself through this possibility. It is, that's what it does. Yeah, I mean, that's its like, that's its blossom of joy in a way. Let's express, you know? Yeah.
You were mentioning grooves, and I know that you mentioned like mental winds before, so you were saying that these grooves are, certain people have certain grooves. So have you noticed in your observation that those grooves just get less deep, your personal groove, or they actually go away?
They can get less deep, they can be filled with something else, so then the movement of mind goes right over them. It doesn't go into the trough, because there's no trough anymore. Yeah?
Can you explain?
Some of them burn down to the nub. Yeah. Some, like we talked the other day, some mental grooves have a lot of life in them in the time, finite time. So some of them burn down to the nub. Some can be changed quickly, yeah?
You mean replaced by another one? Or?
Not even, well, of course the water's gonna seek some other way, so there can be another groove. So when, let's say, if you look at what a lot of life is based on is habit, yeah? Habit. So a lot of behavior now is habitual. So like in recovery, what happens is you go in, and what occurs is, I did things differently based on principles for the first year, and that first year became the foundation of all my other years of sobriety. So I got the right habits in place, where I went to meetings a lot, sat in the front, gave my interest to whoever was speaking to, said hello to newcomers outside, and was willing to be of service, you know? And they became habits where, like right now, I don't think about going to a meeting, it's just which one, yeah? I mean, I just go to meetings, like naturally now, yeah, recovery meetings. I don't think, oh, should I go to a meeting? It's always about which one, you go or not. And if I don't go to a meeting, like on this trip, I don't go to meetings, so it's fine. But when I've got the time, I go to meetings, because that's the habit, yeah? Now that's never thought about anymore. And I'll tell you, when a lot of the stuff is elevated out of the thought debate committee thing, and reaches a level of habit, and if they're based on principle, it's going to clear up a lot of the debris you keep running into, at least out here, so then the mind can be free to entertain possibilities, which are difficult to entertain if you're fighting for fucking survival every day. Yeah? Like some great master says, if someone's, like I used to see Ramesh Balsekar, really nice person, and he would talk, if someone new was at his meeting in Bombay, he'd have him sit in the front, and he first asked him was, do you have a place to stay? You got enough food? Because if they were looking for a place with no food, he's not going to give them, what's the fucking point? Their mind has a purpose that's a necessity at the time, get a place to stay, get some food, yeah? You know what I mean? We're in the luxury of that, of this possibility. We can sit here and entertain things that a lot of people in the world don't have the time to entertain right now. They're busy, caught in a lot of situations, just trying to fucking survive based on their beliefs and their ideas of what's going on. Yeah. So what was it? So what was the thing?
Grooves.
Just talking about grooves and
Oh, grooves. So alcoholism is a deep mental groove. It's a samskara, right? I see it that way. And so what would be the winds of mind blow through those grooves, yeah? Down those grooves, producing a lot of momentum, so when they come into manifestation, they got some oomph, yeah? So let's say they're not able just to start one fire, they can start hundreds of fires for like 30 years. That would be a deep mental groove, yeah? So let's say people who fall into jealousy in their relationships over and over again, yeah? That would be a deep mental groove. It has the groove to go down, and it has the momentum to push out far, which is like it can express over time, not just for a month or two, but maybe for years, yeah? Some of those, as the action figure, they burn down to the nub. They can also be relieved based on another groove taking place, yes? Let's say the groove of your attention and interest resting in what's so, yeah? That has an incredible like a therapeutic or a regenerating effect on the other grooves, yeah? Because now your mind's attention, driven by attention and interest, aren't immediately seeking those deep mental grooves. They're now in another groove, yeah? And this groove isn't just going out, it goes back and forth, which has a lot of power. In other words, your interest and attention isn't just being spent, it's also being invested in the source of interest and attention. And then it's coming back round, and that interest and attention is building a huge amount of momentum because of like the breadth and the width of the loop it's in. Yeah, it's not just going, it's going, like you have it by giving it away, all like that stuff. So now that has a thing, and that can overcome a lot of mental grooves. Yes? The interest and attention isn't familiar with that now, and it keeps returning to it all the time, in no time. And the familiarity gets stronger and stronger, and sufficient enough to start really having an impression here in one's life. Yeah? Really having a big expression here in one's own life.
I noticed that in myself, that when I'm touching into the reality or whatever, or I can go there, or I've had experience to go there, but then sometimes I used to notice it a lot more where I used to do big yo-yos, so I'd have like spiritual experiences and then I do something that's totally opposite of spiritual experience, so I'd yo-yo between them, and like within hours, you know, because it would seem like something came over me that was a pause, and then my mind was like, holy shit, and then I would look for the groove to kind of like come back to reality or the dream, and I would pull myself, or something would pull me back into that. And I noticed that for a very long time, and so there's less, I just noticed that that's burned out over time. But still, sometimes when I'm resting in that.
But why don't you stop where you just said, I've noticed that it's burnt out in time. Just sit there for a while. Instead of immediately, in a way, denying that by saying but, and then adding the emphasis on how it's not working. Just, why don't you pause in just the recognition that it's worked, yeah? And then what happens, see what happens, that maybe an assumption, or you'll start assuming that it is working and it will work, yeah? Yeah? What happens with a lot of people, they describe like this whole new pipe's been laid that's producing a lot of fertility in their life. A lot of water is coming through this pipe. But the back 40 still needs to be hoed or whatever. Why not just sit and just say, it's fucking wonderful. Some of my life has been returned to the Garden of Eden look. You know, okay. Why not just keep entertaining what seems to have irrigated that? And it's not a big leap, it's called faith mind. You can sort of reasonably expect everything will get irrigated. Why not? Yeah? The mind is like, when I was out there, I had every time anything happened good for me, it was totally dismissed because I thought I should add more, you know? And I had to do this weird prayer, it just came to me. In my first few years of recovery, to try to break that habit. And that was everything, anytime something happened that was sort of cool, I would say, thank you, God, that was more than enough, yeah? And I would pause and just let me appreciate this before tattooing it with a butt, you know? Just let's see this, and then, you know, let the butt happen way down there. See what would happen. I found this, if the space that gets cut off by the butt, if I let that butt not show up, it would fill into that space. It would be able to expand to this, yeah? As long as the butt was pushed farther away, the more it expanded. As soon as the butt's introduced, it seems to stop, yeah? And then what you have is a long lot of butt. Well, you got the fucking short end of the stick, I find. So you see it. So I did that for years, and then one day I stopped. I've never done it since, when I bring it up at a meeting, because what was there to sort of substitute for, the real deal showed up. So I didn't need to say thank you, God, there was more enough, because at that point, my attitude had been infused with gratitude. Yeah, so I started having a grateful look of things, not an envious, vindictive, small look at things. Yeah, a lot of stuff. It goes in place. You don't have to keep trying to put it in place. A tool is good, but it's really good to know when you don't need the tool. Yeah, it's good to know when the tool is all right to be put down. Just like we said the other day with self-inquiry, Ramana Maharshi, who brought it back into a popularity, said exactly, you know, you use it, but when you feel the sense of presence, stop questioning the sense of presence. Now be that sense of presence. Yeah. What happens is, Jesus pointed out over 2,000 years ago. It's still appropriate now. Yeah. It's very easy. The mind's going to make something out of it. Yeah. And the way you can have it is like freeze drying it in a sense, so it doesn't have any real life anymore. So now it's under your domain. Yeah. You think you have it, but what you think you have ain't it. Yeah. You never have this. Yeah. In a sense, it's having and giving through you all day, but there's no you ever having it. If there's a you having it, you've been had. And then you have the pride that you may not want to admit that. Yeah? And then it gets more fucking arthritic and rigid. Yes? Like in recovery, we talk about it as some people have too many years and not enough days. Yeah? They got 30 years of sobriety, but they're not really sober today. They're not living it. It's just a fucking, it's, you know, it's like notches on a belt.